Ms Patten, thanks.
Thank you very much, Deputy President. And I'm pleased to rise, and I'll make a fairly short contribution. But I'd like to congratulate Dr Ratnam for bringing this committee referral to the House, because I think this is very important. And I've listened to nothing to see here from the previous speaker. These fires, you should have been here in 1930, then you would have seen something really bad. Just from a fact check there, I'd just like to look up, because I was very surprised by this figure that 1939 fires were bigger than the 2019-2020 fires, because I had not heard that. And as someone who was getting ready to defend a property against fires, I was, very, engaged with this. So I did go and have a look at that. In 1939, 2 million hectares of bush were burnt. How many hectares do we think were burnt here? 10 million. 10 million hectares were burnt in 2019-2020. So I'd have to indicate that was considerably larger. And I think what we also have to note from that fire, in that it was unprecedented, to see Queensland, New South Wales and South Australia, West Australia, Victoria, all burning at almost the same time. And just those incredible fires that were completely out of control. As we heard from the Emergency Fire Service when they briefed us a few weeks ago, they had to almost turn their backs on the fires because nature started them, as they said, and nature would have to put them out because they could not. And I think it was only yesterday that it was announced that we are actually fire-free as of yesterday. So these fires were unprecedented, not to mention the effect of smoke over this summer, when somewhere between 30 and 50% of Australians were affected by smoke, when our economy was affected by smoke. We're looking at the coronavirus or COVID-19 virus now. But the effect of smoke in those days and in those weeks was debilitating. The long-term effect of that smoke we probably won't know for some time, but we know that it was dangerous. And yes, our community and our constituents expect us to consider this. They expect us to look at this. They expect to see us taking the lead in action. But I think I think we need to look at why this is so important. So we know that the average temperature of the world has increased probably just since the Renaissance period. I don't have figures going before that, and I appreciate that the world is many millions of years old, but we know that the world is increasing since the temperature has been steadily increasing since the Industrial Revolution. The Paris Agreement is a goal. It is a long-term temperature goal, and Mr. Rich Phillips was absolutely correct in that. It was a long-term goal to get our temperatures back to pre-industrial levels. So this means right now we need to prevent and bring back. We've got sort of half a degree to play with, because we know that if we get more than half a degree warmer, we'll be hitting 2 degrees or more of global warming. And we know the effects that is going to have on our coastal cities. We know the effects that that's going to have on our floods. I believe, and I think most people believe, that the fires that we saw were related to changes in our climate. High tide flooding experienced now will be inundating communities every year. It will affect our food supply, we know this. It will affect our fresh rainfall. It will affect our extreme weather events and so much more. So it's why the Paris Agreement itself is not controversial, and I don't think Mr. Rich Phillips was saying that it was controversial. It's probably how we get there and the timeline that seems to be causing the consternation. it depends on what day you're listening to the news as to where our federal government is on when they're going to do this and where they're going to achieve it. We do hear that they are going to, the minister does say, yes, we're going to do the zero transmit, we will achieve our targets of reducing our our emissions to zero, but we don't know when. But we do know that the Australian Industry Group, the Business Council of Australia, the National Farmers Federation, ACTU, the ACTU, have all said that we must do it. And in fact, the Business Council of Australia said we must legislate to do this, that this is so crucial to everything in our community that we must do it. So to hear Mr Rich Phillips rally against people like the Business Council of Australia or the Australian Industrial Group, I think is somewhat surprising, but, maybe he knows better. But I believe that this is a climate emergency, and I believe that our community expects us to do the right thing. I think our community expects us to consider how we can solve this, how we can be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And yes, we can say, but China's not doing it, so we're not. That is a childish argument. That is a childish argument. We need to state a clear roadmap and a clear path, a clear plan of how we transition to zero net emissions, and in the time frame. We need to have the time frame. And I think that this inquiry will help provide those answers. And given the makeup of that committee, I think this will be a very robust conversation. And I look forward to watching from the sidelines. I encourage everyone to support this inquiry, because I think it is important. I think our community and our constituents expect us to be asking these questions, expect us to be coming forward with solutions, and expect us to come forward with good plans of how we can play our part in reaching zero emissions. So I commend this referral. It's entirely consistent with the Reason Party policy, and I wish the committee well.